With European music, the idea is they've evolved this system over thousands of years, and everything happens in that context. And so that something is in tune or out of tune, and you can, a whole lot of people have tuners and they just look at the tuner and tune, and that's how they decide whether they're in tune or not. And I don't like that because it takes away this great opportunity to listen. And in some other traditions, like Makam, which is like oud music and stuff, and raga, you spend a lot of time tuning. And the tuning is part of the personality of the player, and part of the, they may aspire to tune like their teacher, or aspire to tune to this certain tradition. And, like the oud doesn't have any frets, so nothing's like, everything is subject to this expression. And sitars have frets, but you spend time moving them around until you get what you like. And I think the Western system disempowers the musician, and it takes away this really fundamental part of playing, of making music, and makes it, what do you call that, a prerequisite. Like, you can't play until you're in tune with this system. And so you're not really put in a position, especially as a young player coming up, of questioning this. You may hear that you're first starting out and you're trying to play stuff and, whatever it is, and you don't really, you wish that was a little different, and but there's nothing you can do about it because you got a fret there, or a key there, whatever. You can't really do anything about it. You just have to learn to use this way of doing things. And it's not that I think it's a really bad system, or that I think it's not worth learning, or anything like that. But I do think it takes people away from the idea of what being a musician is. It's is this what you want to be? Like, are you gonna, do you want to think about music, or do you want to like think only about European music? And cool thing about modern times is, the West is finally starting to figure out that, we're like 20% of the world, and so 4 out of 5 people come from a culture with a different kind of agenda around music, which is, if you're tuning, and tuning is really part of what you do, then you're kind of exploring lots of things about tuning and tonal relationships and and all that. If you're not, if you're just looking at your box and strobing it in and ba-bum, you don't get to think about that. And that's, really early on with this, I stopped putting fixed frets on things. I made like 3 or 4 instruments with fixed frets, and they sound good for something, and not so much with something else. So from then on, I made all the frets adjustable. With things like flutes, you can't really do that. You just have to make another flute if you don't like that, or alter that one while you're playing it, which isn't like really available if you're just kind of playing. But seeing the whole pitch world as an organic, interactive place, you know, with a whole lot of stuff going on that all interferes and interacts and happens within each other, to me is a much more interesting musical idea than thinking of it as this defined preset set of exact relationships. It's statistically, you know, that's like kind of pretty right, but it reminds me of sort of advertising and politics demographics where they see you as a target group and try to sell you this stuff based on the least interesting things about you. You know, you're a white male between this age and that age of this income background with this amount of education, you know, and so you like this, you know, and yeah, you know, I've never met anybody who fit the profile, you know. It's like everybody's just like kind of got their own shit, and you know, and so with making music, is that what we want? You know, do we want to profile ourselves before we even play and aspire to like achieving our profile? You know, is that what we're trying to do? And Western civilization likes that because all along it's been sort of based on these hierarchic concepts, whether they're, you know, empires or churches or monarchies, whatever. Like the whole flow of that has always kind of come from this position of how can we please, you know, the what's the word? Hegemonic power structure. You know, how can we culturally become part of the culture that someone who reaps the benefits of it desires us to be, you know, rather than what do we want? And yeah, I think like kind of taking responsibility for tuning is ooh. You know, in Bulgaria, like when people sneeze, they say drop dead because that means you expelled a ghost, you know, which I always thought was kind of cool. For a while, we were living in a house and we would say drop dead whenever somebody sneezed. And people who weren't familiar with that and would come over and sneeze and everybody would tell them to drop dead. It was kind of funny. Anywho, yeah, sneezed myself a little bit away from that train of thought. I would prefer it if we didn't aspire to fit our profiles and if we aspired to like contribute what we can. The sort of concept of power structures is that deviations are unwelcome, and so they kind of promote this like kind of try as hard as you can to fit your profile, you know, and they like wave the flag of these profiles and say, oh great, yeah, you know, this is what you want to be. Look at it from another way, all our deviations add stuff, you know, like none of us knows everything. And none of us can think up everything there is to think up. So life is actually a lot more interesting when what we do can have something added to it. Like there's, you know, there's no reason because you think one thing and I think another thing that we're locked in this death Armageddon battle because I'm right and you're wrong, or you're right and I'm wrong. And, you know, we can both disprove each other, right? And we can both like eliminate each other and we're poorer as a result of it. You know, if I have an idea and you add something to the idea, that should be enriching, you know? So from the cultural perspective, the Western culture tries to always clear that out. Boom, 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 get it out of here. And I don't think we're particularly succeeding, as a species at the moment. Like, I don't think it's that great. It's okay. We can do lots of things. It's really cool that we have, all this stuff we can do, and we can travel really fast, and we can communicate like instantly, and there's lots of cool stuff that we do. But all in all, like, yeah, meh, it's not awesome. And so maybe what we need from this instead is more varied and different contributions, and more varied and different acceptances of different contributions and stuff like that, instead of like aspiring to profile.